And do Mike McDonald's voice. It drives him crazy.
Okay.
Drives him nuts.
Well, I lost a crucial.
I love that. That's my favorite skit, too, when he's running from studio to studio.
God, it's funny.
Okay.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay. Be at the ready.
We got a pencil
Thank you.
problem.
We got a pencil problemo.
Can I get a seafoam at some point out of you today? It doesn't have to be right now. Pat found
Okay.
your pencil.
Well, we'll live.
You gonna be
I'll get
okay?
I got one for you. Maybe it's up your ass.
I got a pencil.
Here's one.
Here you go, Joe. Brooks got one for you.
Okay, it's not sharpened. Honest to God. I start the damn thing.
Why does he enjoy tormenting
I
you?
don't know. It's just, let's go.
Okay. Here we go. There you go. There's a pencil.
I don't like this one.
Not yellow.
All right, here we go. We can go a little lengthy here if you'd like.
No kidding.
All right.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and he feels fine. Joe Souchere.
Live on YouTube.
I don't know why. If you're watching on YouTube, I have no idea why.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't like this. I don't want a pen. This is fine. This is better. This
You don't
is,
like that it has an eraser.
oh, I don't like that. I'll use this.
Oh, my God.
All right, there we
are
go.
Pain in the ass.
I know I am. I have a letter, and the fellow who wrote it does not want me to use his name, and I will honor that, but I know the fellow, or I certainly know him as a frequent emailer, so I trust every word he says. We're going to return to the world of Tim Walz. Mayor, when Walz was named as the vice presidential running mate of Kamala Harris, I got messages from friends and relatives across the country asking what I thought of Walz. I told them that while I certainly have a different ideology than Walz, that wasn't my main objection. It was just that Walz is fundamentally incompetent. I sent Bill Glon's fraud tracker to a few of them. Bill Glon is coming up in the show momentarily. He's with the Center of the American Experiment. The repeated discussion over the past weeks regarding the multiple frauds under the Walz administration and now his belated attempt to address the issue has pushed me to finally type this out. Forgive the length of this email. There's so much to be said. I own a small business. In 2017, my wife and I bought 5 hair salons of a national brand you would recognize. When COVID arrived, the federal government did a lot of stupid things, but the Walz administration made the situation much worse. I could write a book on the absurdities we had to deal with. I'll give you 2 examples. If we learned of a positive COVID test for any employee or customer, the state of Minnesota required us to close the shop for 24 hours and perform a deep clean. This term was never defined, but it didn't matter. By the time we received word of a positive test result, days would have passed since the exposure. The virus would have already infected anyone who had been in the salon, and deep cleaning would have been pointless, besides the fact that the salon is cleaned all the time anyway. But we were threatened with being shut down if we did not comply. In December of 2020, after months of asking the Minnesota Department of Health for data, I finally got the numbers saying that to date, a total of 41 cases of COVID in Minnesota had been traced to hair salons. 41 against a statewide total of about 300,000 cases at that point. Keep in mind, during the COVID era, you could freely visit a grocery store, a liquor store, Target, Walmart, any big box store, but we were ordered to completely shut down for over 2 months, and after that, we had to operate with restricted capacity. Due to COVID and the federal and state responses to the virus, in 2020, our business earned about half the revenue we would have expected otherwise. How many government agents had to trim their budgets by half? Isn't that a great question?
That's true.
We applied for a lot of federal assistance, but just so GLers understand, If you add up every nickel of grants, forgivable loans, and tax credits we received, it comes to just a little over half of the revenue we lost in 2020 alone. We saw reduced traffic and sales well into 2022. The last credit we could get was applied for in January of 2023. We received those funds in September of 2024, 18 months later. That's because the IRS and the feds were suspicious that there were fraudulent claims being filed. In applying for that government aid, the legalese was very clear that you would not only be on the hook for the money, but would face criminal penalties for any incorrect reporting or documentation. I was in constant anxiety that I might have missed something, failed to dot an I or cross a T. During a period of chaos, unknowns, and government ineptitude, I kept my staff paid, fought to keep the wheels turning on our business, and did my utmost to fulfill all the obligations put on us by a whole list of government agencies, boards, and departments. Was I a dummy or what? I should have just set up a phony school lunch program or a phony autism care center or a phony Medicare agency or all of them at once. Because in Walz, Minnesota, there were no obligations, no oversight, no consequences for failure or malfeasance, and no waiting for the money, apparently. You used the word outrage a few times on Monday's podcast. I don't think that's strong enough. Every time I think about the COVID era, I have to fight hard to keep myself from a white-hot, spitting fury. And Tim Walz's administration is at the heart of it. I'm not a Trump guy, but I am bleeping thrilled that Harris and Walz lost. No one deserves shame and then obscurity more than that ignorant, smug, incompetent jackass in the governor's office. I only wish the press and all of our fellow Minnesotans understand what a word I can't say Walz is. Thanks for Bill Glahn, NGL. We learned today that the Minnesota Historical Society is asking people to send them materials from the Walz vice presidential campaign. They want to archive that, presumably for a despair. Whoa! I think that was a Freudian slip.
That was perfect.
For a display. Jennifer Hubscher, curator of photography and moving images at the Historical Society, told NPR News they made the decision to document Walz's candidacy before Election Day. Since then, they've put out a call for materials. It's something that we're just looking to be proactive about and collect now, because a lot of these types of things, the yard signs, pins, stickers, clothing, a lot of people throw those out once the election is over, and so it can be more difficult to acquire them, Hubscher said. The prized possession of the Walz campaign for the Historical Society team is the camo hat, and the team has already snagged one. That's just so distinctly Tim Walz, Hubscher said delightedly. I think it resonates with a lot of Minnesotans hunting and outdoors and just making that connection. Where have I gone wrong? Why do I see a completely different situation with the Walz administration than, for example, this Hubscher must see? Why do I see it so differently than the Minnesotans who voted for him?
Why are you assuming that you have gone wrong? It's not you that have gone wrong, Joe. Where has she gone wrong?
Let me state it a different way. Why does he continue to enjoy, I would hope, in a shrinking circle of familiar people, why does he continue to enjoy this completely whimsical reputation as a friendly dad neighbor who likes to change the air filter in his truck and go hunting? Why does he continue to enjoy that when we just know it's not that? He's not that person.
He's a total fraud.
I think it's because, well, number one, Minnesota pride But more so, overshadowing that, it's because they don't turn on their own, even when they know bad things about them or their party or people in their party. They never turn on their own.
Even with, like, look at Mitchell. We mentioned her yesterday. They refused to because they needed her.
Right.
You're exactly right, Kenny.
Hubscher is the curator of photography. I said that of Moving Images, and she said they are going to document Walz's candidacy up to Election Day. The effort is far from new. The Historical Society works swiftly to gather materials when candidates, including Governor Tim Pawlenty and former Vice President Hubert Humphrey, pursued higher office. The materials range widely, including everything from candidate buttons to a curated clothing line. And as we mentioned, according to the Historical Society, their prized acquisition is one of these camo hats. I presume it would have been his. One of the biggest challenges of documenting a politician's career, however, is waiting until they're done with each position or poised to retire. Boy, I wish that was upon us. He doesn't have the character to resign. Secondly, records can be scattered about across individuals, groups, and campaign officials. It's often trying to coordinate who has what and how it's organized. Mm-hmm. This is Hubscher still talking. There's not much more to say. They're busy curating what I imagine will be a display at some point, and you can go in and say, well, there's the hat Tim wore, and there's one of his campaign buttons. And
what did the hat say, other than it being camouflage? Do you remember?
Walz Harris, it says.
Oh.
Okay, so it was a calculated decision. It wasn't like, say, for instance, I could go over to my house and choose from 15 different camouflage hats that I just greasy old hats that I have laying around. It wasn't anything like that.
Why don't we send them some things? You want to curate Walz's candidacy? Will you have a special section just for the lies he told?
Sure.
Will you have film of him pretending that he was changing an oil filter in his Land Rover or Scout or whatever he owns?
Just gave me an idea of film. How about Julie Nelson yelling at him? Yeah. Where are you, Governor?
Well, I'm trying to curate. They're just only curating the VP run.
No, I want to curate all of Lake Street.
Well, then you got to throw in broken glass and pieces of charred wood.
Does Gwen then get like a certain wing of this? Meaning, so do we turn the page in a certain corner of the wing?
Turn back the page.
Smelling the burning in another corner of the wing?
Again, that's not VP. I'm trying to stay VP.
What about the frozen?
Well, you're right. That came about because we learned about that.
Yeah.
Because of his notoriety.
Because we never even saw Gwen before he became the VP.
That's true. You're right. Yeah, Gwen needs a wing.
Okay.
There has to be a display of the lies, broken glass, charred wood. How about one of our sources writes, how about a copy of the real estate transaction from the closed Bix warehouse?
True.
Now, I think there should be a display of his military service. God bless him, he served in the Guard, but it turns out that virtually everything he ever said about it was a lie. So how about a glass case with Walz pretending that he was a soldier?
Okay.
All right. How about some photos of, and it came up a lot during the campaign, how about a lot of photos of Walz in China?
Wrapped in a Chinese flag.
I'd throw in a copy of the last state budget where spending went up 30%. I'd throw in the blowing of the $18 billion surplus. I'd throw in the building of the absolute unneeded, unnecessary $1 billion new office building.
Are you picturing the setup almost like
I guess I'm going beyond VP, aren't I?
Are you picturing the setup almost like the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Where you got the little glass cases?
Absolutely.
Okay. Joe, as in all things, you can't get past the money aspect. For me, I am hyper focused on Gwen, and I'm wondering if the S&M outfit that she wears around the house is going to be going to be out there.
Now, the daughter is old enough to be fair game. She's in her 20s now. Do we get her text informing the rioters of the presence of and the movements?
Screenshot. Good idea.
Get screenshots of that in the display.
Blow it way up, really big.
He does not deserve this attention. Here's where I'm at odds with so many people in Minnesota. So many people in Minnesota are not even taking any of these things into consideration about this fellow.
True.
Was it Kyle who told us that the Friday press conference where he announced this, using the knucklehead defense, announcing this belated look into fraud, that was an invitation-only gathering of press?
Yeah, that was covered in the,
Invitation only. He continues to be surrounded, but by a shrinking number of obsequious people who still pretend they bow to him.
Yep. I've just found it, too. Every single time you buy a ticket for admission, instead of getting a receipt, you just get this.
Joy to the world.
I could go the rest of my life without hearing that.
All right.
I'm such at a loss for understanding the mindset. And remember, this is coming to you from a guy who started out in his camp. At the beginning of COVID, I cut him so much slack.
You did.
And you guys were trying to straighten me out, and I was slow to see the light. Well, I did, ultimately, of course, see the light.
I think I know why you did, though, because he wasn't the only governor that acted that way. I think that's why you cut him so much slack.
I bought into the hokiness when he first...
I remember saying he didn't ask for this pandemic.
You're right.
And he was... And then... But my eyes became widely opened. I mean, my God, he even tried a snitch line.
That was still active years after the pandemic had begun.
Well, Walsey, if they have I happen to enjoy going to the Historical Society, once or twice every 2 years, maybe. If there's a big, nifty coffee table book for sale that I can only get at the Historical Society, I go. And then when I'm there, I wander through, see what's new. I'm not going to look at this nonsense. There's nothing to see. It's all fake. It's all wrong. It's all a lie. It's absurd.
But isn't the display just stuff from the election run-up?
But we can't stop
but I
there.
I can't handle that, John, because of my derangement.
John, we're making our own Walz library, basically.
You guys go ahead and erase all the history you like. That's fine.
Absolutely. And Joe, speaking of the snitch
John,
line,
we're not erasing it. We're making suggestions for what should be included.
Well, I think it should be a different display. And I agree with everything you're saying about it.
And get that paper mache Satan thing they made and stick that in the thing.
Well, that's the joy to the world thing.
And
right?
then get some neon. Remember those old-fashioned neon motel signs that had the tilted martini glass?
Yep.
That was the kind my old man and the old lady zip in there and hope they had a pool so you kids would shut up while we go and get this cocktail. What I want one that said, abortion resort. Come to Minnesota for an abortion resort.
Wow,
have a great time.
Wow.
Well, but what would the symbol be? Would it be a
tongs?
No,
some tongs,
no.
or whatever the doctors use. I
wish they'd give me a mute button. I really do.
But isn't the other, John had mentioned, the erasing history part of it. Isn't the other absurd part of this is the fact that we're honoring something where he was crushed? I mean, this would be like us.
I don't think it's honoring. Why is it honoring?
No,
it's just reporting it.
It's documenting the history.
If Hubert Humphrey, are we honoring the fact that he lost?
No, but what distinguishes this, John, is that the Minnesota mindset.
Yes, I agree completely.
No, I'm not done. I have a really great thought here. Let me think of the words.
Okay.
Minnesota seems to have a great inferiority complex.
100%.
Remember Minneapolis? We went through the campaign where it was the little apple instead of the big apple. We're desperate for acclaim.
We like it here.
If somebody wins Wimbledon, we say the tennis player was born here, even though he might have changed planes here once. we are desperate.
Right.
We are desperate to be seen as somebody. And so it's that attitude that's driving this. We're happy because our governor was chosen as a VP candidate. That's what's driving this. It's not occurring to Jennifer Hoobscher, and maybe it even shouldn't. That's not her purview. I don't know her. She does what she does. She's a curator of photography and moving images. And I'm sure what's driving her is the excitement that Minnesota was the home of the vice presidential candidate in 2024. And we're going to have a display to remind you of his hat and the buttons and the signs. And we were so happy that this idiot was the vice presidential candidate. You know? And part of that display should be what a horrible mistake it was to pick him as the vice presidential candidate. Just a dreadful technical error.
Yeah, right next to it should be the historical documentation of the Vikings getting their ass kicked 41-0 to the Giants.
No, what should have been put up a little shrine to Shapiro, who might have really closed the gap.
Yeah.
Anyone would have. But that's what's driving this. We are a state that just tingles with excitement if we're noticed.
Right.
You do know you're talking to a guy from North Dakota, right? Who, we still claim Peggy Lee, for God's sake.
Yeah. And Pat Boone, isn't it? Isn't Pat Boone there?
No, Pat's not from North Dakota.
Lawrence
We wouldn't have
Welk?
him.
You had Lawrence Welk?
Lawrence Welk.
Yeah.
Lawrence Welk and Peggy Lee. Roger Maris, of course,
Roger Maris.
Oh, well.
The list continues.
But that's what's driving this, the tingling sensation of we're seen, we're noted. People in the heat of summer, in the full flowering of summer, when it hadn't become evident yet that Walz was a complete and utter failure at running for vice president, people gathered on Otis and Dayton, the intersection where the University of Minnesota's
East Cliff,
the presidential home of the U of M president, but Walz has taken it over until we spend another $10 million on that dump on Summit Avenue. Where was it? Oh, people gathered down there daily, hoping to get a glimpse.
Yeah.
Thrilled that there were TV cameras and so excited that this complete and utter incompetent buffoon was the vice presidential candidate. He should be impeached for misconduct, which he'll probably avoid by saying it wasn't willful misconduct. I'm just a knucklehead.
and then he'll get elected to another term.
Yeah.
When you said East Cliff, it reminded me what was printed or typed or painted on the roof of the governor's mansion during his run.
Send help? No,
something derogatory.
I know.
Yeah.
And hysterical.
Yeah,
I'll
you could look it up.
I'll look it up.
The governor's house on Summit, where
Right.
there are
where they were working.
construction
So
crews.
we just assumed it was a GLer that was up on the roof.
Do you want my? Well, here let's stay on track and go back to Bill Glahn, who's been mentioned, which is why I tell you that the Center of the American Experiment is a good stop on your interweb searching. Let's go back to this supposed power sharing dilemma in the legislature. The Democrats are pouting, and I know there has to be some sort of sharing if you have a split. But it's the Democrats who ran a cheating candidate. They knew the guy didn't live in Roseville. They didn't do anything about it. And now they're the ones crying. They're the ones saying they're going to take their ball and go home. They're the ones who are being petulant. You cheated, which doesn't shock me at all. You cheated. And Melissa Hortman, is acting like the legislators are a labor union. If we don't get what we want, we're going to strike.
She made that comparison, 2 days ago?
Despite being on the short end of a 66-67 party split, Democrats say they will not show up next week. This is Bill Glahn writing in the on the center.
Walz failed. Walz failed was on top.
Yeah,
of the
Walz failed was on top of the roof. Thank you, Matt. Is that all you're going to do today?
Yeah, I'm done for the day pretty much. We're getting close to 1:30. Getting a little tuckered out.
Let the record show we're 46 minutes away from 1:30.
Right.
That's the message from outgoing Democratic Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman. If there is no power sharing agreement, we won't be here, she said. Hortman likens her minority group of 66 members at most to striking union workers. Now, I've never been in a labor union. This is Bill Glahn writing. But I don't think they have the ability to elect themselves into management positions. Math is a stubborn thing. Democrats got themselves into this pickle because one of their party members cheated and got caught, not living inside the House district he was running for last November, 40B. The special election for that seat will be held no earlier than Jan 28. So for now, Republicans hold the majority pending the eventual results of the House 40B election. We're still awaiting the outcome of another election dispute over House Seat 54A in Shakopee. Presumably, like all striking workers, Democrats won't be paid for not showing up to work. By God, they better not be.
Right. They will be.
You
They will be.
immature adult children. Left-leaning political commentator Blois Olson. Is he left-leaning?
I was kind of wondering that, too.
I always thought he was middle of the road.
I think he likes GL.
Yeah,
He's a GLer.
If anything, he's middle of the road, but's got his head nodded to the
He's
right.
contacted all of us frequently.
Left-leaning political commentator Blois Olson covered this item in his newsletter this newsletter this morning. He writes of the attempt to deprive the body of a quorum to pass bills and conduct business. The Democrats' instinct is to take their ball and go home whenever they don't get their way. So what will they be missing while on strike? Republicans put forward their agenda today. The Republican to-do list includes bills to curb improper state spending, rolling back taxes on retirees and automatic bumps to the gasoline tax, repeal a restriction on new nuclear power facilities in the state, and reduce state requirements imposed on school districts and local governments. Republicans say they would create a new committee specifically tasked with investigating fraud in government programs and crafting bills to add more legislative oversight to executive branch functions. And Glahn writes he anticipates 0 Democrats showing up for work a week from yesterday. Local media seem to treat these statements as mere threats. The Star Tribune, political power plays cloud start of Minnesota's legislative session. Carol Evan, Hortman, Democrats will use all parliamentary tactics available to prevent GOP power grab. It's not a power grab, Hortman. You were lying. You cheated. Your party cheated. They had this stiff camped out over in Little Canada running for a seat in Roseville. You cheated. He got caught. And from what I'm hearing, by the way, I had great hopes that in the special election, maybe a Republican could prevail, but people are telling me that forget about it. Roseville is basically a little distinction from St. Paul, and uninformed people in Roseville will continue to blindly send Democrats to the House, even though they're going to find out in the long run they can't afford it. But they'll do it because some character will have a DFL in front of his name.
Is that where John Marty's from?
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. The Democrats cheated, and they're gaslighting you. They're trying to tell you that their cheating has resulted in a Republican power grab. We cheated, and the Republicans are trying to take power. No, you cheated. You don't have anybody. You're down a seat. When it's evened out, you can discuss power sharing. Right now, it ain't even. So get to work like adults and quit pretending. Crybabies.
I mean,
Oh, God help us. What do you want?
I want you to tell us about the fine folks at Precision Garage Door.
Well, it's more than that. I want you to put this number in your telephone contacts for Precision Garage Door for no other reason than you need a garage door guy. If you don't need him today, you're going to at some point. And when you need a garage door guy, you're not going to find a better one than the guys they send out from Precision Door MN. They serve Western Wisconsin. They serve the Metro. They don't charge more for weekend emergency visits. They offer new doors with models for every estimate. Put this number in your contact. 612.
do it.
I'm trying to say the number.
Okay, say the number then, please.
612-263-6985. Or if you prefer to do that online, you can book an appointment for regular service or schedule a free garage door consultation. They come to you. You don't have to send the garage door to them. Get them at Precision Door MN, one word, precisiondoormn.com.
This guy wears many hats, just not indoors. Joe Souchere.
As far as I know, Tim at Eco still having a great sale on Yamaha generators, GLers. If you're headed that way, to pick one up, and I really advise you do. I also advise you stop into the local NAC or Frats or an auto parts store, any auto parts store, C-store, big box, Home Depot, save big money at Menards. It doesn't matter. Pick up a couple, 2-3 cans of Seafoam motor treatment, because speaking from experience, I own a Yamaha 2200. You're going to have periods where you use that thing for a day or two straight, and then you're going to have long stretches, 6 months or more, where you actually forget where you stashed it. That's how it goes with generators, and that's where Seafoam plays in. It'll help that baby fire up better. It'll help it run better and last longer. It helps with this garbage we call gasoline, which has a shelf life of about 2 minutes. It's horrible, horrible stuff. But Seafoam helps all of that. And yeah, it's safe for gas and diesel engines, including those little one-lunger generators. Works great for them. And it's available all over everywhere. If you don't want to leave the house, that's fine. Just go to the website, seafoamworks.com. Order it in. Order in all you need. You can even order it in bulk if you want to put it in your bulk tank. A wonderful product in a world of bad gas. Seafoam.
Yamaha generators.
Yamaha.
Don't know about Yamaha.
Yamaha.
Here's John Height.
Thank you, Joe. This update brought to you by North American Banking Company. We've already talked about some, election news locally in Minnesota that's kind of weird. We have another one now. An election contest filed with the Minnesota Supreme Court claims a candidate running for the vacant seat in Senate District 60 has not properly established residency there. That petition brought by Sonia Neculescu, a District 60 voter, says DFL candidate Mohammed Jama voted in District 63 on Election Day using same-day registration and therefore could not have lived in District 60.
Where is that, John? Do we know?
60? Isn't 60 the one where
I'll look it up.
Dietzick is?
Carrie.
This is the seat, the Kerry Dietzick seat.
All right.
So she is saying he did not live there a full 6 months prior to the January 28th special election, as state law requires. Jacob Hooper, Jama's campaign manager, allegedly messaged the DFL official that Jama has lived in District 60 for, quote, about 6 months, but used his old address to vote in 2024 because he was in the process of moving. The petition notes that same-day voter registration requires the voter to provide proof of their current residence. If Jama successfully was able to provide proof of current residence, then he could not also have resided in Senate District 60, according to the filing. Neculescu asked the Supreme Court to rule that Jama is ineligible for office and for the Hennepin County Auditor to either keep Jama's name off the ballot for the primary or declare that any votes cast for him will not count. The Supreme Court here in Minnesota is expected to hear the case on Friday. Candidates were given 1 day, December 31st, to file for office after the death of Senator Kerry Dietzick. She died of cancer last month. 12 people filed paperwork, but 2 ended up withdrawing, leaving 10 candidates ahead of next week's primary election. 8 Democrats and 2 Republicans.
I love my Somali brothers and sisters, but if you're running for political office or trying to get money from the government, I don't believe a word you say.
Okay.
That's just the way I'm going to go about it.
District 60 comprises Minneapolis Ward 1, all of it, the majority of 2, and portions of 3 and 6.
Northeast.
Yeah, I have to go to a map to define those wards. Yes, you're correct. Ward 1 and 2 are north and northeast. And what were the other ones? 6 and 9?
No, we have the other ones taken care of.
Got it. 3 and 6. Okay.
The largest and most diverse class of its kind in years. That's how the Minneapolis Police Department is describing its next cadet and community service officer class. Yesterday, inside a North Minneapolis church, the class of 32 received a warm welcome from city and state leaders. Mayor Jacob Fry said to the future officers and attendees there were years where the thoughts of joining the Minneapolis Police Department was not a thought that people were following through with. Now, there's still more work ahead before they're sworn in as officers, but the department says they think this is a great step and trend that they hope lasts. Chief Brian O'Hara is saying some of our cadets and CSOs are born in countries all over the world, whether it's Somalia, Turkey, Taiwan, Vietnam, or Laos. They want to be here because they want to be part of a change. To start the new year, the MPD has 579 sworn officers. Well, far from the about 900 at its peak, O'Hara says he feels better about the future given the size of this class. The CSOs have a longer journey before becoming an officer, including still needing to finish up a 2-year law enforcement program. Some of those cadets could be sworn in as early as this summer.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Does John's opening sentence of that news story give anybody else pause like it did me?
I'd have to hear it again.
The largest and most diverse class of its kind in years. That's how the Minneapolis Police Department is describing its next cadet community service officer class.
Meaning, is this down the DEI route here?
Absolutely.
Is the number 32?
32, yep.
That strikes me as low.
Well, yeah, they can't get anybody that wants to do the job, Ken. That's the problem.
Should be 300.
Well, and I guess I hope every single one of them does a tremendous job, makes the city so much safer, and is in it for all the right reasons. But that really gives me pause.
Very good.
Copy.
All right.
We're pausing over here.
Well, I'm just saying, there's other areas that this has taken place, and that's why a lot of good cops have left
Chris,
the job.
You got to do what I do. Count your blessings, my friend.
All right. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Yep. Write it off.
A truly weird and somewhat sickening story from White Bear Lake. One-time White Bear Lake tattoo artist is on his way to prison for trafficking in stolen human remains, including those of a stillborn baby whose mom thought had been cremated.
Well, that's terrible.
Jeez.
53-year-old Matthew Lampy of East Bethel was sentenced in U.S. District Court last week to 1.25 years in prison after pleading guilty to interstate transport of stolen goods. He took part in a nationwide network that prosecutors say bought and sold body parts from Harvard Medical School and an Arkansas mortuary. Along with prison time, Lampy's sentence includes a fine of $2,000 and an order that he and one of his accomplices pay $1,700 in restitution to the mother of the baby whose remains he purchased. He's scheduled to report February 3rd for imprisonment. Lampy had owned Get to the Point Tattoo Parlor, which operated in the 3600 block of White Bear Avenue in White Bear Lake. Another tattoo business now occupies that space. Prosecutors said Lampy and cohorts stole dead babies and parts of cadavers and turned them into what they called stock, buying and selling pieces of deceased people, advertising their wares, and creating a marketplace for the trade.
Well, this guy belongs in a Twitch farm.
Lampy's business activities in Minnesota included buying and selling what he called antiques, but according to charges, in reality included the substantial part human remains such as bones, skulls, organs, and fetal corpses. At one time, he acknowledged 25 human skulls among his personal assets.
So what do you do with it?
But Joe, how does that conversation go? Or if you're in an antique store and you're looking at old signs and lamps, how do you get to the back room where the skulls and the fingers
Where
and
do
the
you
bones
keep the body?
Secret handshake, wink,
Now,
wink, nudge.
What does one do other than that you're demented? What do you do with these body parts? Do you make ornaments or something?
Turn them into lamps.
Are you going to Ed Gein? Are we going to Ed Gein here?
Bernice Warden, is she there?
I love that you ask the four of us.
Why am I looking
like
at you?
would have the
Here's
answer
what I
to
do
that.
with them. I put them in my shoebox and I do the old ketchup thumb thing.
Have you ever been walking down a beach somewhere and some shady looking guy comes up to you and says, "Hey, you're looking for some dandy? I can get you anything you need. Weed, coke."
I had that happen. Yeah.
I need a human toe.
Well, I can get you a toe.
I was just going to say, you always bragged about getting us a toe
I
by
get
3
you a toe
o'clock.
by 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
According
Thanks,
to the
Walter.
story, there's a large nationwide network. So apparently there are collectors, and that's what you do with them.
That's
You buy, trade, and sell just like Topps baseball cards.
This is right in there with Truman trying to buy Greenland in 1867.
you meet somebody online, eHarmony or whatever, and you're saying, "So what are you into? What you got any hobbies?"
the box.
Yeah, I collect thumbs.
I collect parts. Yeah.
I've started collecting butter dishes. I guess I wouldn't. I'm not.
Yeah.
For some sick reason, I believe that. I
I
believe
am.
he's collecting butter dishes.
am.
I believe that.
I believe it.
He goes to those craft sales and the estate sales.
If
Butter
you've got
dishes.
if you've got one for sale under $20, get a hold of me.
I'm your guy.
I'm up to a dozen now.
Oh, my
Our butter dish has a cow head. That's the hand.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is.
That's
I would
neat,
buy
man.
that.
It is.
That's
I'll give you
neat.
$12 for it.
Oh, it's off the market.
Kenny,
I'll
we got one of
trade
those.
you for a hand.
One of those old blue ones that that have been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
With the glass lid.
Do we know?
So-
Do we know if the stillborn child at least made it back to her mother?
It did not. They, according to the larger story
keep
I
it as
read,
evidence.
they actually made a medal for her with what she thought were the remains of the child. They were not the remains of the child, and the remains are gone. She never got them.
Then however much time he got in jail wasn't enough.
A year and a quarter, which
That's
is
not
nothing.
enough.
Yeah, it's
Not
crazy.
enough.
Before we move on, NASCAR Kelly has a request for you, Joe. Or she wants her toe to have nail polish on it.
It's a good request.
It's a
What
special
color? I
order.
can do that.
Rookie's
at
in
that.
charge of the ones that are
Yeah,
polished.
I'll give it a nice
There are
filing
ways.
down and
Believe me, dude.
push
You don't
back
want
the
to know.
cuticles.
Well, never mind. Taste of Minnesota will be making its return this summer when it hopes to run longer and feature more attractions for visitors. The free event will be downtown Minneapolis from July 5th through the 6th from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m., a later schedule than last year when it was successful.
Didn't you
Taste
and
of-
Nobody
Patrick-
got shot, I don't think,
No,
last
they
year.
had a very successful operation.
Didn't you and
they said.
Royce do a show from the Taste of Minnesota years ago?
Could have
that,
been.
That was me and Norm Coleman.
I did one there.
Yes,
the first,
it's good for St. Paul. But the
I
taste
did
of,
one there. Yeah,
the
years
taste
ago.
of Minnesota, though, the state fair is always in their promotion. You know what it's going to be. The taste of Minnesota is always, they have to tell you it's going to go on. They have to tell you where it's going to be. It's
Yeah.
like the festival without a home. It's
Yeah.
roaming the desert for the last 40 years.
The
Yes.
best was on
Didn't
the state
Ron Maddox
Capitol
start
grounds.
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
the
I
late
went to
great.
the very first one. It was on the grounds of the state capitol.
So did I.
Yeah, and it was
Do you
pretty well
remember?
attended, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Yeah, it was a hot day.
It was a hot day, and then there was a downpour.
Yeah.
And then all the gals that were wearing skimpy white T-shirts
Right.
because it was so
You
hot
pervert. I mean,
were
that-
now wearing wet
Jeez.
white T-shirts.
Oh, my
It was a
God.
delightful, very memorable day.
You're like my dad on halter top day.
That's when the
Twins
boy
game.
became a man.
Yes.
Yep.
Ron Maddox couldn't walk because he was such a big guy. He would just drive the golf cart around the entire grounds of the Capitol.
My hero.
I did a bunch of those with the other station. I was with the music station, and Ron would come and visit us, and man, you couldn't get him to stop talking.
No, he liked to talk.
He was a chatterbox.
I think he was a cop in Detroit. Who am I thinking of? Was that him?
That could be. Well, his kids went to Nativity.
Yeah.
They
That
lived in
has
Highland
nothing to
Park.
do with being a cop in
Well,
Detroit.
I don't think he was I
kind
don't
of
know
a-
what he did prior
Kind
to.
of an afterthought
I think
on
he
your
liked
part.
apple pie.
I don't remember him being a cop, but I
He
remember
changed
Ron.
his shirt on Saturdays.
I remember
did.
he was
Yeah.
wearing jeans.
Yeah.
I remember Ron Maddox, small machine repair
Right
across
there.
from Widmer's.
Pryor and St. Clair.
Yeah,
I think he drove a white car.
I went to school with his son Billy.
Why
Joe-
don't we take a little
I
break?
don't
Wait,
know.
a question
Sure,
for
yeah.
Joe. What was the band on that first year? Because that's why I would have come to town to see the band.
It was
always
noted.
had
It was a
good
noted
bands.
group.
Yeah, it was a bigger group. That's why we
probably
went
a
down
hair
there.
band.
You know
in
what's
those
gonna be
days.
Probably.
Probably Snake or
Something
something.
like that.
One of
Quiet
my
Riot.
Yeah.
One of my favorite concerts ever was on the Capitol grounds, Taste of Minnesota. And do you guys remember Dave Mason? He was a member of Traffic and
Sure.
just a wonderful guitar player.
Yeah.
He was the act that's one of my favorite concerts ever.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a
Wonder why
blast.
they don't have any more concerts on the Capitol lawn there.
I don't know. Why don't we take a break here?
I don't know,
Ponder
you
all
tell
these
me.
questions
Well,
we
while
brought up
John
in the
goes to look up who the
last
first
few
act
minutes.
was at the Great Taste of Minnesota, I am going to slow down so much that I'm going to give you 5 extra minutes of North American Banking Company talking points.
You have to breathe once in a while too.
That's the problem. See, because of the nasal situation,
Yeah.
I've got to pause while I give the information so I can take a breath.
All right.
But see, here's the thing that separates North American Banking Company from the big national banks. They take the time to get to know you, your family,
Pause. Breath.
and your business needs. They greet you by your first name, and they're always ready to help. And I like being able to go to any one of their
Another
6
breath.
Twin Cities locations, whether it's Roseville, pause, 50th in France,
Wonderful.
Hastings, Woodbury, Shoreview, or Maple Grove, Joe. North American Banking Company offers all of the services as the other big national banks, and it doesn't matter whether you're looking to buy a home, finance a new home renovation project, or get that new car that you've been thinking about. My friends at North American Banking Company are going to be able to help you out. They also offer the same online and mobile banking options as the other banks, but you're going to get the unparalleled service of a community bank. And they are also locally owned and operated. And that means, Joe, loan decisions are made right here in the Twin Cities. They are not sent out of state. So this helps business owners solve problems quickly and expand their business with confidence. North American Banking Company deals with numbers every single day, but you, your family, and your business will never be one of them. So check them out online today. It's nabankco.com to learn more. nabankco.com. It's banking done differently. North American Banking Company, member FDIC, is an equal housing lender.
Here's a guy that forgets to hit blinders.
Justice, and the Souchere.
I, as you would expect, went and checked the 1983 music acts at the First Taste of Minnesota on the Minnesota State Capitol grounds. They had some pretty good, actually the local acts were better than the national acts. Locally, they had on one stage, among other bands, Willie and the Bees, who were fabulous, Willie Murphy, the Wallets, and Mary Jane Holm. On one of the other local stages, they had the Metro All-Stars, featuring my homeboy from Mandan, North Dakota, Jody Hanks. He was their lead singer. Rio Nito with guitarist Tim Sparks, who's an incredible guitar player to this day, and the Michael James Band from Fargo, a great band from the Fargo area. On the main stage, the best act, one I would love to have seen. I did actually see him a couple times, but not here, Jerry Jeff Walker. That was
Who else was on the main stage?
Becky Reimer Thompson, not familiar with her.
No.
Stony Lonesome.
No.
Butch Thompson, of course.
Oh, Butch.
Rockin'.
The pianist?
Yep. Rockin' Hollywoods.
My grandpa was a member of the Butch Thompson Trio.
Yes. In fact, he's on that album. Right?
When did he die?
When did Red die?
Yeah.
87.
Well, then he played at Taste of Minnesota.
Yeah.
In 83.
I'll bet we went to see Mary Jane Alm because she would occasionally appear with Daisy Dillman.
Daisy Dillman actually played on the other stage.
Okay,
This
that's
is fascinating. Can we move on?
I bet my grandpa had some Mary Jane at the Taste of Minnesota.
One more act that I didn't see the first time around on the main stage, although by then I believe pretty much every member was gone. The association played the main stage. So, all right, let me go back to the news here.
Yeah.
Back to the news. President Carter lying in state for a second day today after his remains arrived in Washington a day earlier as part of state funeral rites. The Georgia Democrat and 39th president dying the 29th of December at the age of 100. He was remembered Tuesday at the Capitol for his deep religious faith, long public service, and decades of humanitarian work beyond what he accomplished in politics. Carter will remain at the Capitol until tomorrow morning when he is transported to Washington National Cathedral for a state funeral. President Biden, a longtime Carter ally, will deliver a eulogy. Other living former presidents, including President-elect Trump, are expected to attend.
Rook,
Yep.
In anticipation of John's conclusion of the news, look up the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. I want to know if it's burned down. Go ahead, John.
Multiple massive wildfires tore across Los Angeles with devastating force early this morning as residents made a desperate escape from burning homes through flames, winds, and towering clouds of smoke. At least 3 separate blazes were burning in the metropolitan area from the Pacific Coast inland to Pasadena, home of the Rose Parade. With thousands of firefighters already attacking the flames, the LA Fire Department put out a plea for off-duty firefighters to help. Weather conditions still too windy for the second day for firefighting aircraft to fly, further hampering the fight. As of about an hour ago, a story I saw, they said the fire was 0% contained. 2 people killed, many others hurt in the fires, which has destroyed more than 1,000 structures. Images of the devastation that emerged overnight showed homes that had collapsed in a whirlwind of flaming embers, tops of palm trees whooping against the sky. Tens of thousands of residents ordered to evacuate. Among them, some of California's rich and famous Hollywood stars, including Mark Hamill, Mandy Moore, and James Woods, were among those forced to flee their homes.
Look up Riviera Country Club, too.
Okay,
See if that
in the
went
line
down.
of fire, the grounds of the Getty Villa Museum caught fire, but it does not say if the actual museum...
The museum is perched in such a way that I don't think it could burn. There's not a lot of trees or vegetation around it.
Okay. Yeah, it just says the
Have you
grounds
ever
catch
watched
fire.
any golf at the Riviera Country
sure.
Club? Well, you always see those houses around it. I would imagine those are gone.
The video, too, I know we all saw it, of the guy trapped in his home with his dog. And the fire's basically all around his home. It's almost the thought that came to mind is, well, if he tries to leave, he's going to burn to death.
Well,
but then don't you suffocate from smoke inhalation?
You would think so. I don't know what happened to that fellow.
A couple of musician deaths locally. Co-founder of the Suburbs, Beach Cheney, died in California. He did a lot of swimming, and his body was found on Hermosa Beach, according to his friends and bandmates. The Suburbs, formed in 1977, as I said, he was one of the co-founders, recorded for the very influential bass Twin Tone Records. The group melded punk and new wave into an ahead-of-its-time dance rock, went on to make albums on the Phonogram and A&M labels before they disbanded in 1987. Some history from Beach after that. I did not know this till I read it in the paper. He moved to California in 1990. After moving to L.A., he released a solo album, but then he bought Shangri-La, which is the legendary Malibu residential recording studio used by all sorts of folks. Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, the band, and others. Mark Knopfler recorded there, and friends of Cheney said that Beach didn't charge Mark because he was such a fan. After Weezer and Metallica recorded there, Cheney sold the studio to Rick Rubin in 2011. Cheney was 68 years old.
I like cows. They have tiny feet. They go moo.
Is that a Suburb song?
You would have to know the Suburbs. I had many, many, many great evenings partying with those guys. Fun band.
And Peter Yarrow, the Peter and Peter, Paul, and Mary died from cancer at the age of 86. The trio at the forefront of the early 60s folk movement and were instrumental in Bob Dylan's folk rise, recording Dylan's songs and making them popular. After recording their last number one hit, a 1969 cover of John Denver's Leaving on a Jet Plane, the trio split up the following year to pursue solo careers. That same year, Yarrow pleaded guilty to taking indecent liberties with a 14-year-old girl. Apparently no sex was involved, but a couple of 14-year-olds had come to his hotel room asking for autographs. He let them in, but he was naked at the time. Yarrow resumed,
How do you want me to sign that?
Yarrow,
Go ahead.
Yarrow resumed his career, and Yarrow served 3 months for that charge. He then resumed his career after that, pardoned by President Jimmy Carter in 1981. Over the incidents, he apologized repeatedly for the incident. Only one remains now, Paul Stuckey. is the only living member from the trio. Stuckey is 87 years old.
Mary Travers did not age well.
She did not.
Is he still signing autographs?
I don't know. No. Peter
Mary,
Yarrow, Paul Stuckey, and Mary Travers.
Yeah, she was a very. There's a great documentary about them. I don't remember who. I think it was on PBS. But she was a very harsh woman too.
I didn't know that.
She didn't take kindly to people who disagreed with her.
I see.
Let's put it that way.
Neither does Joe.
Karma won in the end because she was a little tough to look at Grandma.
Check it out.
Well, she wasn't a sex symbol like you are right now.
Right.
Hey now.
Oh, wow. Kenny with the victory.
She became large, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What a sweetheart.
Yeah.
That's the second time they've come up on this show recently because, remember, we were talking about I dig rock and roll music.
Yep.
Dig.
Just a week or two ago.
Music.
That was Mamas and Papas.
No, that was Peter, Paul, and Mary. This was the discussion we had.
How many times?
But Mamas and Papas did it.
They did not. They never recorded it. They are mentioned in the lyric of the song. I dig rock and roll music like the mamas and the papas. Da, 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 da,
dig
that too.
I'd bet you a $5 bill that the Mamas and Papas recorded that.
I'll bet you a
Can I get in on that?
$100 bill.
I want to get in on that
Yeah,
one.
I don't even know what we're talking about. I want in.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
like
all
the-
in
the
for
Dukes are
100.
trying
So
to
when I
corner the
heard
market.
that song, I was hearing Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yes.
Yeah. And
It
it was
sounded much
supposed to
better than
sound
they were
like-
capable of.
Well, they were pretty talented vocalists.
Yeah, but the answer,
I want to
my
hear
friend,
Joe
is blowing
start
in the wind.
harmonizing. I want to hear Joe harmonize with two other people. See how well he does.
I wasn't allowed to sing.
After all these years, we now know.
Matt, we're doing the news.
Trying to harmonize. I don't like your tone when you're harmonizing.
We now know how spiders' sense of smell works.
I've been always wondering.
Let's go.
I've been wondering that.
In a study published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, they demonstrated that male spiders use olfactory hairs called wall pore sensilla on their legs as a nose to detect the sex pheromones released by female spiders. The discovery puts an end to a decades-long search. Decades, they've been looking for this. For the elusive sensilla, which have now been both identified and mapped. It also opens up opportunities for an in-depth study on the mechanism underlying spiders' olfaction. Although spiders, which have been evolving for about 400 million years, are renowned for their vibration sense, and some, like jumping spiders, I hate jumping spiders, are known for their excellent vision. There's been plenty of evidence showing that spiders can detect odors, but two big questions remained unanswered. First, as spiders don't have antennae. As other insects, how did they smell? Second, previous studies suggested that spiders lacked wall pore sensilla, the specialized structures that insects rely on for smell. The study solved those long-standing questions, discovering previously overlooked pore wall sensilla on those walking legs.
That sounds very complex. I'm glad we just have boobs as human.
John, thank you.
You know, you can find a female instead of
I thought
checking out the legs.
We don't have to take a break.
ears could smell
Do we?
or something.
We don't need
Actually,
it.
yes,
We do?
Yeah, we do.
Why?
Before we conclude the program.
Do we?
All right, do it.
Do we? Do we?
But first, I'd like to speed up, but then slow down
Here it comes.
and tell you about my friends at Hofferman Water and Connecticut. Joe, 2025 means one thing. It's time to turn the page, like Gwen Walz tried to tell us during the campaign, and make the switch because your water stinks. It's terrible. Don't you want tremendous water, the best ever? Maybe water from the Gulf of America? Then make a switch to my friends at Hofferman Water and Connecticut. Your first step, however, you've got to get on that schedule to have them come out to give you that free water analysis along with that water score. And you do that by calling 612-895-2440, or you can visit their website, which is hoffermanwater.com.
Just tell me when you're done.
Okay, I will do that, Joe. Either way, you can book that appointment and have them come out for that free water analysis. If you go to the website, you can also see every single water treatment system that they have to offer for you and your family and your home. Because bad water can affect almost every aspect of your home. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the mood for a water softener, maybe an iron, rust, and odor filtration system, or a brand new drinking water system. A brand new system from Connecticut can do so many things that other water softeners just simply cannot do. It's going to cut down on your salt salt usage, but it's also going to protect your appliances. 612-895-2440 or HoffermanWater.com. Hofferman Water has been proudly serving the state of Minnesota for over 50 years. Let them know that you heard about them on the Garage Logic podcast, Joe.
We don't need a break. We've had enough disruptions today. Let's just keep going. How's that?
I'm game.
Okay.
You don't need that. You don't need one.
Okay.
Because I've got to get to this fire in
Let's
Los
go.
Angeles. I want to read you something. I went and did homework last night because it's a terrible fire. I know the area very well. And this is from Wildfire LA. This is the official site of the Los Angeles Regional Fire Safety Council.
Okay.
I didn't want to get anything off Twitter, although there's certainly a number of videos there. This is, and I just found this interesting. This document that I'm going to cite starts with this. Until the 1870s, wildfires, as today mostly accidentally or purposely human-caused, in the mountains north of Los Angeles were considered more of an attraction than a threat, especially at night. They were fondly described as tongues of flame licking the Sierra Madre. Since few people lived on or near the mountains, fires there caused no great alarm. In fact, 2 cattlemen were reported to annually ignite big fires in the mountains that raised no concern. Wildfires only first became a concern in 1884 when flooding from eroded hillsides wiped out the track system of the Southern Pacific Railroad in the Los Angeles area. Authorities finally banned needless fires and even threatened to prosecute offenders. As fires and flooding resulted from fire erosion increasingly threatened property in the 1800s, Angelenos lost their fondness for beautiful wildfires and demanded fire suppression. I only read that because it really struck me as interesting that to think there was actually a time when people found them a source of amusement. That's not the case today.
No, we're very serious.
And you've all probably tired of me telling you that these fires are ancient, but they're now catastrophic because they affect where people live. Well, have you ever been in that area?
I've never.
Staff,
Yeah.
anyone?
Yeah,
anyone?
I've been there.
Well, they're canyon sides.
Yeah.
And there's narrow, twisty roads that go through them. And then depending where you are, it's worth it to be there because you can see the ocean in the distance. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's heavily vegetated and forested. But then a guy might say, look, there's a little hunk of rock there. If I move that, I can get a $28 million house right in there. And it's packed with nifty houses. But it shouldn't be because of this.
Right.
It just shouldn't be. Every year, wildfires in the state generally and in the greater LA area specifically burn hotter, faster, and with greater impact on the community. As more people move into the wildland-urban interface, the type of fuel, along with ornamental vegetation, creates more risk for people, pets, and property. Thankfully, the largest wildfire in Los Angeles County occurred in the Angeles National Forest in July of 1960. And then I have a chart. I won't bore you with it. It's pages long. But we can go to, let's just go to Los Angeles County. Oh, no, here's the largest wildfires in Los Angeles County by acres burned. I have that list. The largest is 1960, but again, that was the forest. That was 23,170 acres. 1968, 22,000 acres. 1996, 21,000 acres. And then we go to 202, 1993, 1958, and on and on and on. Here's one from 1896. My point being, of course, that all you're going to hear is climate change caused this. That's all you're going to hear. Without putting it into the context that, unfortunately, this is a fact of life if you want to live in Los Angeles County. You're going to face mudslides, earthquakes, and fires. It's a fact of life.
I wouldn't live there.
And we were facing them long before today. Here are the most destructive wildfires in Los Angeles County history, because we may very well be witnessing what will become the new most destructive fire. It's that bad. You can't fight a fire in those Santa Ana winds. The planes can't get up and go down and swoop down and get water. You're handicapped by that tremendous wind that's blowing.
And choppers probably can't have enough water.
So far, the worst fire was as recently as 2018, when we lost 1,121 structures. That was the Westlake Village to Malibu fire. I remember it.
Right.
The second biggest was the Sylmar fire. That was 2008, 604 structures. Then we go to November of 1961, Bel Air and Brentwood, 484 structures. And then we go to 1970, Malibu Canyon. Then we go to 1938, Topanga Canyon, Malibu Hills, 350 structures, on and on and on. This one might very well become the biggest. John, do you have right now a number of structures destroyed?
It said over 1,000. That's the only thing it said as of this morning.
Well, it'll have to beat 1,121. It's a lousy record to establish, but it'll have to beat 1,121 to top the November 8, 2018 Westlake Village to Malibu fire. It sounds like it's going to. It doesn't sound like anything in the way of this fire will survive.
No.
It's just horrific.
So many houses on Topanga Canyon Road. I mean, you could stick your arm out the window and touch the house next to you.
Yep.
There's so many.
And how about
it's really crowded.
Did you guys all see the video of the bulldozer just moving cars that had been abandoned?
Well, they told everybody to flee, so they did, and then gridlock ensued. So
Right.
then they told everybody, leave your vehicles.
Right.
But where do you go?
Well, they were walking towards the beach, and they were you're walking downhill onto Sunset Boulevard and then into L.A.
Right.
Wow.
This is north of the town of. This is north of the Hollywood Hills sign.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's Topanga Canyon Road is closed between Mulholland and 1, which is also closed, which is down by the ocean.
This is absolutely horrific. It's a terrible fire. They can't do anything about it because of the wind, and you're going to be inundated with climate change. But that, to put in context, that doesn't explain 1896 and 1961 and 1906. It doesn't explain 1938 and 1955 and on and on and on. I mean, it's a very interesting site for Los Angeles. It's Wildfire LA, one word, wildfirela.org. That's of little consolation to people who've lost their homes, but it's a fact of life. I heard James Woods, who I have a feeling might be a GLer, the actor James Woods.
He's also a little nuts.
Well, yeah, he might be, but he's one of the few Hollywood-type celebrities whoever says anything on social media that's not liberal.
True.
Well, what struck me about his GLism is that he said, look, I heard him being interviewed, and he lost everything. And he and his wife had just got done renovating this place. He said it was beautiful. You could sit and see the ocean sunset from our house and on and on and on. He said, but we had our go pack ready. We know that you're supposed to have one ready in case of fire. So in other words, there was a resident who knew
awareness
that these were a
surroundings.
fact of life and that it could happen at any time. He said at 10 o'clock in the morning, it was a bluebird day, and by noon, they had to be thinking about leaving.
Is it a case too where the Florida issue where you can't really get flood insurance? Is it a case where you can't get fire insurance in this part of the country?
He said many people have had insurance expire because their carrier left the state.
Oh, interesting.
Oh boy.
Kelsey seems to believe this will turn a lot of those fake liberals into conservatives when they realize no insurance, we're done, it's over. I don't know what better forest management might have prevented this. I have no idea about that.
Listener to the show questioned Sophie Stadium. Not that it's going to burn down.
Nowhere near it.
But as far as like the
SoFi.
smoke or
SoFi.
SoFi. It's nowhere near it. It's way
No, I don't
down
mean
in
for
the
burning,
flat.
but
I
like
know
just-
it's down on the flatlands though, and the wind isn't blowing. It's not it's not a north wind right now.
okay.
It's a wind blowing out to sea. It's even if your house survives, it's going to be a smoke damage hell.
Yeah, everything's toasted.
Chris, to answer your question, even with fire control measures, if every measure had been taken, all the dead stuff cleared and controlled burns, and I don't think that would have made any difference in this fire due to, like you said, the winds.
How do you? I guess you accept that. It's, in other words, like this James Woods place. It must have been gorgeous. Well, it's gorgeous until it isn't. You must just sign a pact with the devil and say, well, we're going to live here until we
It's
can't.
East Coast and hurricanes.
Yeah.
It's Minnesota and 40 below.
Yeah. I don't get the Minnesota part. Why in the hell do we put up with 40 below?
I mean,
Only because they come to us all the way from Lake Las Vegas, Nevada. It was on this day.
On January 8th.
This comes from the Traveling Lineman. It was on this day.
January 8th.
In 1851, Bagon Gizhig, hole in the day, an Ojibwe leader sent a letter to the Minnesota Territorial Legislature inviting its members to come to St. Paul to a St. Paul church and hear him speak about the suffering and needs of his people and their desire for peace. They are like some poor animal driven into a hole and condemned to die, he said, inspiring some of the most influential white people in the territory to form a committee to solicit contributions for the Ojibwe. On this day,
Jan 8.
in 1920, Jacob A.O. Preuss, Jr., son of soon-to-be Governor Preuss Sr., was born in St. Paul. After becoming president of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in 1969, he, along with other advocates of traditionalism, was troubled by alleged liberalism in the faculty at Concordia Seminary in St. Louis and their attitude toward biblical authority. A critical struggle about doctrinal purity would ensue, with Preuss successfully being reelected in 1973 and thus securing the traditional ways of the synod. I don't know if I would have put that in this day in history. On this day,
January 8th.
in 1924, 6 people died. 1924. 6 people died when a car crashed through the ice on Lake Andrews near Alexandria. A Model T, probably. You wouldn't think it would have been heavy enough to crash through the ice. Now, on January 8th, they must have been having some warm weather.
What lake?
Andrews.
Oh.
On this day,
On January 8th.
in 1934, during the Great Depression, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a Minnesota mortgage moratorium law, a decision that State Attorney General Harry H. Peterson applauded as a victory for the people of Minnesota that will enable many farmers and city dwellers to hold on to their homes until good times return. It was on this day,
On 1/8.
in 1971, President Richard Nixon signed a law creating Voyageurs National Park. Supported by former Governor Elmer L. Anderson and Charles A. Lindbergh, the legislation had been approved by Congress on October 5 of the previous year. And finally, on this day,
On January 8th.
1991, sports note.
January 8th.
Former Minnesota Twin and California Angels player Rod Carew was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame. He achieved, of course, a .328 lifetime batting average, hitting over 300 in 15 consecutive seasons with both the Twins and Angels.
Wow.
Rodney could hit.
Did you go to his ceremony?
No.
Really?
I don't think I did. No,
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Such.
I should have.
Hole in the day lake tell me where that is.
I have no idea.
Oh, really?
No.
You should know.
Well, I'm
it's
sorry.
right across 371 from Gull Lake.
I thought that was North Long.
The North Long is also over there, Lake Hubert, Round Lake. But there's a sign that every time I drive up 371, Hole in the Day Lake. Right
I
there.
love that name.
Oh, it's great.
It beats the hell out of Dead Lake.
Yeah. There's a lot of Ojibwe names around that area.
Pun intended.
Migwitch.
Hole in the Day. I like that.
Migwitch.
Thank you, GLers.
Oh, Migwitch.
Yeah, thank you,
Migwitch.
Migwitch.
No.
Migwitch.
Migwitch means thank you.
I know.
Got it.
Thank you, Midwich,
Migwitch.
for subscribing to the Garage Logic YouTube channel. Yeah, GL's on YouTube, and you can watch a show almost every single day starting at noon, unless there's a bit of a technical issue, which we will quickly fix. But GL is on YouTube each and every single day starting at noon, and you can also subscribe to see full segments, video shorts, behind the scenes coverage in some cases. It's all there for you on the Garage Logic YouTube channel. You can also search for Garage Logic on all of our social media channels and follow us along and sign up for the Daily Logician. It's an email. It comes right to your inbox each and every single day. It includes the most recent episode of the podcast, and it also includes a weekly note directly from the mayor. It's called Saturdays with Such.